Hey there. Tonight, we're stepping behind the tin star. We're going past the legends of the lone, heroic lawman who cleans up a dusty town with nothing but a steely gaze and a fast horse. We're diving into the gritty, thankless, and terrifying reality of what it actually meant to be a sheriff in the Wild West. Forget the Hollywood showdowns at high noon. The real job was a miserable mix of social work, political tightrope walking, and janitorial duty, all performed for low pay, with little respect, and a very high chance of ending up on the wrong end of a bullet. It wasn't a calling for heroes. It was a job for the desperate, the stubborn, or the foolish. If this kind of calm, slow history helps you unwind, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if you find it genuinely brings you some peace. And, as always, I love seeing our quiet community connect. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you right now. It's a small comfort to know who is settling in for the same story from around the world. So, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft ambient hum. Settle in, and let's pin on a badge that feels less like a symbol of authority and more like a target. Let's get one thing straight. You didn't get this job because you were the fastest gun in the West. You probably got it because no one else in their right mind wanted it. The year is 1882. The town is a dusty speck on the plains of Kansas called Prosperity, a name that drips with an irony so thick you could taste it. It's a cattle town, which means for 10 months of the year, it's a quiet, sleepy place. For the other two, when the cowboys drive their herds in from Texas, it's a chaotic swirl of whiskey, gunfire, and regret. The previous sheriff, a man named Miller, didn't retire to a quiet farm. He retired into a pine box after trying to break up a card game that had gone sour in the Lucky Gus saloon. He was slow, they said, or maybe just tired. After Miller, nobody wanted the job. The town council, made up of the saloon owner, the general store proprietor, and a nervous banker, put out the call. The pay was a paltry $50 a month, plus fees. It wasn't enough to attract a professional, and it was barely enough to convince a fool. That's where you come in. Maybe you were a former buffalo hunter with nowhere else to go. Maybe you were a farmer whose crops had failed one too many times. Or maybe you were just passing through and the town council saw something in your eyes, not courage, but a kind of weary stubbornness. They offered you the job. You thought about it for a whole minute, weighed the near certainty of a violent death against the immediate certainty of starvation, and you said yes. They didn't give you a uniform. They didn't give you training. They handed you a cheap tin star, probably the same one Miller was wearing, and a set of iron keys to the 2-cell jail. "Keep the peace," the mayor said, clapping you on the shoulder. What he meant was, keep the cowboys from burning down my saloon, but don't stop them from spending all their money first. You are not a hero. You are not a legend. You are the town's designated problem solver, a man hired to stand between the fragile veneer of civilization and the raw, drunken chaos of the frontier. The badge on your chest doesn't feel like a shield. It feels heavy, cold, and incredibly thin. It won't stop a bullet. It won't earn you respect. It will only ensure that when trouble starts, everyone will turn and look at you, and you will be expected to do something about it. Alone. Welcome to the job. Try not to end up like Miller. Your day doesn't start with a beautiful sunrise over the prairie. It starts with the taste of stale coffee and the dull, persistent ache of anxiety in the pit of your stomach. You sleep on a narrow cot in the back of your office, a small, dusty room that smells of old paper, gun oil, and the lingering despair of the last man you locked up. The office is your home, your command center, and your prison. It consists of a scarred wooden desk, a pot-bellied stove that's either freezing cold or dangerously hot, and a gun rack holding a shotgun and a rifle. The walls are thin. You can hear every cough, every argument, every drunken song from the saloon next door. You never truly sleep. You just rest with one ear open. The first thing you do is make coffee. It's the same bitter, boiled sludge that everyone else drinks, but it's a necessary ritual. As you sip the hot, gritty liquid, You do a mental inventory of the town's potential problems. Is it payday at the big ranch down south? Are the cowboys due in? Is that drifter with the shifty eyes still in town? Is the faro game at the Lucky Gus getting too high stakes? Your job is 90% anticipation and 10% sheer terror. You are constantly playing the odds, trying to predict where the next spark will fly in a town made of dry tinder. You strap on your gun belt. It's heavy and comforting, but you know its limitations. The movies get it wrong. You don't stride out into the street looking for a duel. The gun is a last resort. Your most important tools are your eyes, your ears, and your ability to talk a man down from a bad decision. A gunfight is a failure, a sign that you lost control. And a gunfight, even one you win, can leave you dead from a stray bullet or a festering wound days later. The weapon itself is a Colt Peacemaker or maybe a Smith, Wesson Schofield. It's a piece of machinery, not a magic wand. It's heavy. It's not perfectly accurate. And in the heat of a real confrontation, hitting a moving target is a matter of luck as much as skill. The idea of fanning the hammer or performing fancy quick-draw tricks is a fantasy for dime novels. Trying something like that in a real fight will get you killed. You carry 5 rounds in the 6-chamber cylinder, the hammer resting on an empty chamber. This is a basic safety precaution to prevent the gun from firing if you fall or if the hammer is struck. A gun that goes off by accident can kill you just as dead as one fired in anger. You pin the tin star to your vest. It feels like you're pinning on a sign that reads, "Please direct all your violent, drunken, and unreasonable problems to this man." You take a deep breath, finish your coffee, and step out into the morning light. The town of Prosperity is quiet for now, but you know it won't last. The sun is up, and the devil is already pouring his first drink. Your workday has begun. It will end when the last drunk is unconscious or when you are. Your first official duty of the day is a walk down Main Street. This isn't a heroic patrol, it's a janitorial inspection. You're looking for the human debris left over from the previous night. You find your first customer sleeping it off in the alley behind the saloon. It's a young cowboy, no more than 19, covered in dust and smelling like a distillery fire. He's lost his hat and one of his boots. You nudge him with the toe of your own boot. He groans. "All right, son, time to move along," you say, your voice flat and tired. This is the most common part of your job, dealing with drunks. You're not enforcing a grand moral code. You're just trying to keep the town from looking like a flophouse. You could arrest him for vagrancy, but that's more trouble than it's worth. It means paperwork, and it means feeding him, a cost that comes out of the county's meager budget, and indirectly, your own fee-based income. So you just try to move him on. "Go sleep it off at your camp," you tell him. He mutters something unintelligible and stumbles away, leaving one boot behind. You pick it up and toss it on the saloon porch. Maybe he'll find it later. Maybe he won't. You don't have time to care. You continue your walk. The street is a mess. Horse manure is everywhere. The boardwalks are stained with tobacco spit. A window on the general store is cracked, probably from a stray punch in a fight you didn't hear about. You make a mental note to talk to the store owner. He'll complain. He'll demand you do something. But what can you do? You can't be everywhere at once. You see 2 ranchers arguing in front of the livery stable. Their voices are raised. One is accusing the other of letting his cattle wander onto his grazing land. This is another common fire you have to put out. These disputes over land and livestock can fester for years, and sometimes they end in bloodshed. You step between them. You don't draw your weapon. You don't make threats. You use the weary, patient tone of a father dealing with 2 squabbling children. "All right, gentlemen, let's calm it down." You listen to both sides. You nod. You suggest they talk to the judge when he rides through next month. You tell them that if you have to come back here, you're taking them both to jail to cool off. They grumble, but they separate. You haven't solved the problem. You've just postponed the violence. That's what most of your job is, postponing the inevitable. Next, you stop by the telegraph office. The operator gives you a new poster. It's for a man wanted for bank robbery in a town 100 miles away. The likeness is a crude drawing that could be half the men in this county. The reward is $500, a fortune. But you know the chances of that man wandering into your town are slim to none. And if he did, he'd likely be part of a gang, and you'd be facing him alone. The poster is just a piece of paper, a reminder of a larger, more dangerous world that mostly stays out of your jurisdiction. You tack it to the board outside your office, next to a dozen other faded posters for men who are probably long dead or in Mexico. Your morning patrol is a series of small, frustrating, and deeply unglamorous tasks. You are not fighting evil, you are managing human foolishness. You are a glorified handyman, a conflict mediator, a social janitor. You are sweeping up the messes that other people make. You see a group of children playing in the street. They stop their game and stare at you as you walk by. They don't see a hero. They see a man who carries a gun and smells of stale coffee. They see the man who dragged their father out of the saloon last week. Their mothers pull them away, whispering, "You are a necessary evil, a figure of fear as much as authority." You reach the end of the street and turn back. The town is fully awake now. The blacksmith's hammer rings. Wagons are rolling in. The doors to the saloons are open. The quiet of the morning is gone. The potential for trouble is rising with the sun. And you have to face it all with nothing but a tin star, a tired gun, and a profound sense of resignation. This is your beat. And it's a long, thankless day ahead. For most of the year, your town of prosperity is a quiet, manageable place. The permanent residents, the shopkeepers, the blacksmith, the handful of families are generally sober and law-abiding. But for 2 months, every summer, the town transforms. The cowboys arrive. They come at the end of the great cattle drives, pushing thousands of longhorns up from Texas to the railheads in Kansas. They are young men, most of them barely out of their teens, and they have just spent 3 long, grueling months on the trail. They have faced stampedes, river crossings, lightning storms, and profound boredom. They haven't seen a town, a bottle of real whiskey, or a woman in all that time, and they have just been paid. When they hit your town, they are a force of nature, a tidal wave of pent-up energy, testosterone and cash. They are not villains. They are not looking to cause trouble, not intentionally. They are just looking to let off steam. But their idea of a good time is your worst nightmare. They descend upon the saloons in a great, noisy herd. They drink with a desperate thirst, pouring the cheap, fiery whiskey down their throats as if it were water. They shout, they sing off-key, they pound their fists on the bar. The quiet murmur of the saloon becomes a deafening roar. Then, they get bored. They start to look for other forms of entertainment. They might decide to have a shooting contest in the middle of Main Street, firing their pistols at bottles, signs, or anything else that catches their fancy. Stray bullets whistle through the air, punching holes in storefronts and sending the town's respectable citizens diving for cover. You are expected to go out there and tell a dozen drunken men with guns to please stop. They might decide to ride their horses directly into the saloon, scattering tables and patrons, and demanding a drink without dismounting. The saloon owner will look to you, his eyes a mixture of fear and fury. They will fight. Over a woman, over a card game, over a perceived insult, or over absolutely nothing at all. These are not choreographed brawls. They are chaotic, messy explosions of violence. Men swing chairs, break bottles over heads, and pull knives. Your job is to wade into the middle of this whirlwind of flailing limbs and broken glass and try to restore some semblance of order, usually by cracking a few heads yourself with the butt of your pistol or a sawed-off shotgun barrel you carry as a club. You can't arrest them all. Your jail only has 2 cells, so you practice a form of triage. You arrest the most violent offenders, the ones who are a danger to themselves and others. You let the rest blow off steam, as long as they don't do too much damage. This is the central conflict of your job. The town's economy depends on the cowboys. The saloon owner, the hotel keeper, The merchants, they make most of their money during these few chaotic weeks. They want the cowboys' business, but they don't want the chaos that comes with it. They want you to keep the cowboys from wrecking the town, but not to be so strict that you scare them away to the next town down the line. So you walk a tightrope. You are firm, but not too firm. You make a few high-profile arrests to show you mean business, but you let a lot of lesser infractions slide. You become an expert in de-escalation, in using a sharp word or a hard stare to prevent a fight before it starts. But sometimes, talking isn't enough. Sometimes, a cowboy, full of whiskey and youthful arrogance, decides to test you. He decides to see if the man with the tin star is as tough as he's supposed to be. He might call you out. This is not a formal duel. He will just start shooting in your direction. And in that moment, all your weariness, all your frustration hardens into a cold, clear focus. You draw your weapon. You fire. You pray that your aim is true and his is not. If you are lucky, you walk away. The cowboy is carried off to the undertaker. The town is quiet for a few hours. The other cowboys are a little more respectful. But you know you've just made a dozen new enemies, friends of the man you just killed. And you know that the story will be told and retold, exaggerated and twisted, until you are either a hero or a villain in a legend that has nothing to do with the sordid, terrifying reality of what just happened. The cowboy problem is the heart of your misery. They are not evil, but they are a force of chaos you are paid to contain but never to solve. You are the dam holding back the flood, and every summer you can feel the cracks beginning to show. You might think that as a sheriff, you receive a steady, reliable salary for your dangerous work. You would be wrong. Your income is based on a complex and often corrupt fee system. The $50 a month the town pays you is just a retainer. The real money, such as it is, comes from the fees you collect for performing your duties. You get paid a fee for serving a warrant, $2. You get paid for making an arrest, another $2. You get paid for every mile you travel to apprehend a fugitive, 25 cents a mile. You even get paid for feeding the prisoners in your jail $1 a day per prisoner. This system turns justice into a business, and it creates a whole host of perverse incentives. For example, that $1 a day you get for feeding a prisoner, that money is meant to cover the cost of the food. But if you can feed the prisoner for 50 cents, you get to pocket the other 50. So, the food in your jail is terrible. Watery soup, stale bread, just enough to keep the prisoner alive. The more prisoners you have, and the less you feed them, the more money you make. Your jail becomes a small, grim, for-profit enterprise. The fee for making an arrest encourages you to be aggressive. A simple dispute that could be settled with a warning might instead end with an arrest, because an arrest means $2 in your pocket. You might be more inclined to arrest a vagrant, a man with no job and no money, because he is an easy target and can't afford to fight the charge. The town's respectable citizens will approve. It makes the town look cleaner. And the mileage fee for chasing fugitives? That can be the most lucrative part of the job, but it's also the most dangerous. A $500 reward for a wanted man sounds tempting. But when you factor in the weeks you might spend on the trail, the cost of supplies, the risk of being killed, it's rarely worth it. Still, some lawmen become bounty hunters, chasing paper across the West, drawn by the lure of a big payday. They are often gone from their towns for months at a time, leaving their communities unprotected. You are constantly under pressure from the town's business leaders. The saloon owner wants you to be lenient with his paying customers. A drunken cowboy who is spending freely should be given a warning, while a sober man with no money should be run out of town. The banker wants you to be tough on cattle rustlers and horse thieves, as they threaten the assets that secure his loans. The hotel owner wants you to keep the street fights to a minimum, as they disturb his guests. You are not an impartial arbiter of justice. You are a political operative, trying to balance the competing interests of the powerful men who can have you voted out of office in the next election. This system breeds corruption. Some sheriffs work hand in hand with the criminal elements in their towns. They take a cut of the profits from the gambling halls and brothels in exchange for looking the other way. They lose evidence, intimidate witnesses, and ensure that their powerful friends are never convicted. You try to be an honest man. You try to enforce the law fairly, but you are caught in a system that is inherently unfair. You are underpaid, overworked, and constantly tempted by opportunities to bend the rules for your own financial gain. You look at the fees you've collected at the end of the month. It's barely enough to live on. You see the wanted poster with the $500 reward. It's a temptation. You think about the meager meal you're feeding the prisoner in your jail. You could make it even smaller. This is the quiet, grinding corruption of the frontier justice system. It's not about grand conspiracies. It's about 1,000 small, morally compromising decisions made by men who are trying to survive in a job that is designed to break them, one way or another. The tin star on your chest is supposed to be a symbol of integrity, but some days it just feels like a price tag. Your jail is not the formidable stone fortress you've seen in pictures of prisons back east. It is, to be generous, a shack. A small, two-cell structure made of thick wooden planks, with iron bars on the single window and a heavy, barred door. It is neither secure nor sanitary. The inside smells of sweat, fear, and unwashed humanity. The cells are tiny, maybe 6 feet by 8 feet. There is no furniture, just a wooden plank for a bed and a bucket in the corner for a toilet. The bucket is your responsibility to empty. It is the single worst part of your job. In the summer, the jail is an oven, the air thick and stifling. In the winter, it's a freezer, the cold seeping through the wooden walls. The prisoners are miserable, and their misery becomes your constant companion. The jail is a constant source of anxiety. It is not secure. A determined prisoner, given enough time and a small piece of metal, could probably pry his way out. You have to check on them constantly. But the bigger fear is not of prisoners getting out. It's of a mob getting in. When you have an unpopular prisoner, a man accused of a particularly terrible crime, or a member of a rival faction in a range war, the jail becomes a focal point for the town's anger. You will hear the whispers start in the saloon. You will see a crowd begin to gather in the street. They are not interested in a trial. They are interested in a rope. This is the ultimate test of a sheriff. The lynch mob. 100 angry men, their faces illuminated by torchlight, their judgment clouded by whiskey and rage. They will come to your office. They will demand the prisoner. And you will have to stand in the doorway, alone, and tell them no. You will have to face your neighbors, the men you drink with, the men whose property you protect. You will have to look into their furious, righteous faces and tell them that the man in the cell, no matter what he has done, has a right to a trial. This is the moment when the tin star feels impossibly heavy. You are one man against 100. You have a shotgun. They have rifles, pistols, and a collective fury that is more powerful than any weapon. You know that if you fire on the crowd, you will be torn to pieces. You know that if you step aside, you will have failed in your most fundamental duty. So you talk, you plead, you reason, you bluff. You tell them they will have to kill you to get to the prisoner. You try to buy time, hoping their anger will burn itself out, hoping that the more sober-minded men in the crowd will prevail. Sometimes it works. The crowd hesitates, the momentum is lost. They disperse, grumbling, and you are left standing in the doorway, your heart pounding, your body shaking with adrenaline and relief. Other times, it doesn't. The mob pushes forward. They break down the door. They drag the prisoner from his cell. You are either knocked aside or you make the terrible choice to save your own life. You watch, helpless, as they drag the man to the nearest tree and hang him, and you have to live with that for the rest of your life. The memory of the man's terrified eyes, the sound of the rope creaking, the cheers of the crowd. You have to continue to police a town where you know that the law is just a suggestion, and the real power lies with the mob. The jail is more than just a building. It is a symbol of the fragile, contested nature of law on the frontier. It is a constant reminder of your own powerlessness. It is a wooden cage that holds not just the prisoners, but you as well, trapped by your duty, your fear, and the savage justice of the crowd. A body has been found. A gambler, known for his flashy clothes and his habit of winning a little too often, was discovered in the alley behind the blacksmith's shop. He was shot in the back. There are no witnesses. Now you have to investigate a murder. Forget everything you've seen in modern detective shows. You have no forensic science, no fingerprinting, no DNA analysis, no crime scene unit. You have your eyes, your ears, and your gut. That's it. You go to the scene. The body has already been moved by the undertaker. The area has been trampled by a dozen curious townspeople. Any potential evidence, footprints, a dropped cartridge casing is long gone. So you start with the basics. You talk to people. This is an investigation built on gossip, rumor, and lies. You go to the saloon where the gambler was last seen. The bartender is evasive. He doesn't want trouble. He says he didn't see anything. The other patrons give you the same story. They were playing cards, they were drinking. They didn't notice when the gambler left. Everyone is a potential suspect, and everyone has a reason to lie. You learn that the dead man had a heated argument with a cowboy named Slim over a card game a few hours before he was killed. Slim accused him of cheating. Threats were made. This is your first lead. You find Slim at his camp on the edge of town. He's packing his things, getting ready to leave. He denies everything. He says the argument was just words. He has an alibi. He was with his friends, drinking. His friends, of course, back up his story. Is he telling the truth, or are they all lying to protect him? You have no way of knowing. You go back to the body at the undertaker's office. You examine the wound. The bullet is still lodged in the man's chest. You could try to dig it out. If you did, you would have the bullet. But what would that tell you? Many men in town carry the same caliber of pistol. A bullet is not a fingerprint. You are chasing shadows. You are trying to piece together a story from a collection of whispers and half-truths. Your investigation is a slow, frustrating process of walking, talking, and thinking. You might get lucky. Someone who disliked Slim might come to you secretly and tell you they saw him follow the gambler out of the saloon. A saloon girl might remember that Slim was in a rage after the card game. You might find a witness who was sober enough and brave enough to tell you the truth. But more often than not, the trail goes cold. People are too scared to talk. The evidence is non-existent. The killer simply vanishes into the vastness of the frontier. The murder of the gambler becomes just another unsolved crime, another ghost to haunt your town. And what if you do find your man? What if you are convinced that Slim is the killer? You still have to prove it. You have to convince a jury. And a jury in a cattle town is likely to be made up of other cowboys. They will be sympathetic to one of their own, especially if the victim was an outsider, a professional gambler who was seen as a parasite. You might make a brilliant case, but still lose. Slim is acquitted. He walks out of the courtroom a free man, and he gives you a long, cold stare as he leaves. You have not only failed to get justice, you have made a dangerous enemy. This is the reality of law enforcement on the frontier. It is not a science, it is a guessing game. You are working in the dark, with crude tools and unreliable information. You are fighting against a culture of silence, fear, and casual violence. For every celebrated case where a lawman brought a killer to justice, there were 100 where the murderer simply walked away, his crime fading into the dust of an indifferent town. The wanted posters on your office wall are a constant, nagging reminder of a threat that is different from the everyday chaos of your town. The lone drifter, the drunken cowboy, these are problems you can manage. But the outlaw gang is something else entirely. They are the wolves of the frontier, and you are the lone shepherd. These are not the charming gentleman robbers of myth. They are not Robin Hoods, stealing from the rich to give to the poor. They are desperate, ruthless men, often hardened veterans of the Civil War, who have found that it is easier to take a living with a gun than to earn it with a shovel. They are killers, thieves, and predators. They travel in packs, for safety and for strength. A gang of 5 or 6 men can ride into a town and hold it hostage. They can rob the bank, the general store, the stagecoach, and be gone before you can even organize a response. One hot afternoon it happens. A rider gallops into town, his horse lathered in sweat. The stagecoach has been robbed 10 miles down the road. The driver and a passenger have been killed. The gang took the strongbox and fled south. Now all eyes are on you. The town is in a panic. The mayor, the banker, the respectable citizens, they are all demanding that you do something. They expect you to saddle up, ride out, and bring these killers to justice. You know what a fool's errand this is. You are one man, they are a gang. They are hard riders, expert shots, and they have a head start. They know the terrain, the hidden canyons, the waterholes, the secret trails. You are riding into their world, but you have no choice. The badge on your chest demands it, so you do the only thing you can. You try to form a posse. This is another moment where the Hollywood myth shatters into 1,000 pieces. You do not get to pick a team of loyal, skilled deputies. You get what the town has to offer. You deputize the blacksmith, who is strong but slow. You deputize the store clerk, who is terrified but owns a rifle. You deputize a few ranchers who are angry about the threat to their property. And you get a dozen drunks from the saloon who think it sounds like a grand adventure. This is your posse. A disorganized, undisciplined, and largely incompetent mob. They are more of a danger to themselves than to the outlaws. You ride out, leading this sorry collection of men. The tracking is slow and difficult. You are not a master tracker. You follow the obvious trail of hoof prints in the dust, knowing that the gang could be watching you from any ridge, preparing an ambush. The men in your posse are not used to this. They complain about the heat, the dust, the lack of water. Their horses grow tired. The drunks start to sober up and realize what a terrible idea this was. The initial enthusiasm fades, replaced by fear and resentment. If you are incredibly lucky, you might stumble upon the outlaws' camp. And then the real terror begins. A gunfight with a seasoned gang is not a fair fight. They are expecting you. They have chosen the ground. They are hidden behind rocks and trees. Your posse falls apart at the first shot. The store clerk drops his rifle and runs. The drunks fire wildly in all directions, a danger to everyone. The ranchers might stand and fight, but they are not soldiers. You find yourself in the middle of a chaotic, terrifying firefight. Bullets whistle past your head. Men are screaming. You try to find cover, try to get a clear shot. You fire your pistol, the sound deafening, the smoke burning your eyes. You see one of the outlaws fall. You see one of your own men go down, clutching his chest. The fight is over in minutes. The outlaws, having taught you a lesson, mount their horses and ride away. They leave behind their dead, and yours. You ride back into town, defeated. You bring with you the bodies of the men who died under your command. There is no hero's welcome. There are only the grieving faces of the widows. The mayor is furious that you let the outlaws get away. The townspeople whisper that you are a coward, that you are incompetent. You have risked your life. You have seen men die, and you have failed. You take off your tin star and place it on your desk. You look at the wanted posters on the wall. They seem to be mocking you. This is the reality of facing the wolf pack. You are not the hero who single-handedly defeats the gang. You are the man who is sent out to be slaughtered. And if you survive, you are the man who has to live with the failure, the fear, and the ghosts of the men who didn't. Perhaps the most grueling part of your job isn't the violence or the vice of the town. It's the sheer, crushing scale of your responsibility. If you're a county sheriff, your jurisdiction isn't just the few dusty streets of prosperity. It's the entire county, an enormous swath of land that can stretch for hundreds, even thousands, of square miles. It's a kingdom of grass, rock, and sky, and you are its only law. A rancher from the far side of the county rides into town. It took him 2 days to get here. He tells you a story of cattle rustling. A dozen of his best steers have vanished. He has a suspicion it's his neighbor, a man named Henderson who lives on a small, failing ranch 30 miles from him. He wants you to ride out and investigate. So you saddle your horse. You pack your bedroll, a canteen of water, some hardtack and jerky. You are leaving the relative civilization of the town and heading out into the vast, empty wilderness. You will be alone for days. The ride is monotonous and lonely. The landscape is immense, beautiful in its own stark way, but also intimidating. The silence is profound, broken only by the plodding of your horse's hooves and the cry of a distant hawk. You are a tiny, solitary figure in an ocean of land. The dangers out here are different from the dangers of the town. There are no drunken cowboys, but there are rattlesnakes, flash floods, and lightning storms. You have to know how to read the weather, how to find water, how to make a safe camp. A lame horse or a lost trail can be a death sentence. You ride for 2 days, sleeping under the stars, your shotgun by your side. You are constantly vigilant, watching for any sign of trouble. You are not just a lawman out here, you are a survivor. You finally reach the rancher's property. You spend a day searching for tracks, for evidence. You find where the fence was cut. You follow the trail of the stolen cattle for a few miles before it disappears on rocky ground. Then you ride to Henderson's ranch. He is a hard, sun-beaten man with suspicious eyes. He denies everything. His ranch is neat, his cattle are branded. There is no sign of the stolen steers. Do you believe him? Do you search his property without a warrant, risking a confrontation? You have no proof, only one man's word against another's. You are a detective, a judge, and a jury, all in one. You have to make a decision based on your gut, on your reading of the men. You decide there isn't enough evidence to act. You warn Henderson that you'll be watching him. He says nothing, just stares at you with cold resentment. You turn your horse and begin the long 2-day ride back to town. You have spent the better part of a week, risked your life, and accomplished absolutely nothing. The rancher will be furious. Henderson will be your enemy. You have resolved nothing. This is the life of a county sheriff. It is an endless series of long, lonely rides, of unresolved disputes, of simmering hatreds. You are trying to impose a fragile, abstract idea called the law on a land that does not want it, among a people who believe in solving their own problems with a rope or a gun. You are constantly moving, but you are not getting anywhere. You are a man stretched thin, responsible for a territory far too large to control. The badge gives you authority, but the wilderness mocks it. Out here, the only real law is the law of survival, and you are just one man on one tired horse with a very long way to go. You ride on, the setting sun at your back, a lonely symbol of an order that exists more on paper than in the hard, unforgiving reality of the land. You are the law in Prosperity, Kansas, but you are not the only law on the frontier. There are other men with other badges and other allegiances who move through your world. Sometimes they are allies. More often, they are reminders of your own limitations. One day, a man steps off the afternoon train. He is different from the cowboys and drifters you are used to. He wears a clean, dark suit. His eyes are cold and observant. He carries himself with an air of quiet, implacable authority. He comes to your office and introduces himself. He is a United States Marshal. He is hunting a man you've never heard of, a counterfeiter who is rumored to be passing through this part of the country. The U.S. Marshal is a federal lawman. His jurisdiction is the entire nation. He is not beholden to your town council, your mayor, or your fee system. He answers to a distant authority in Washington, D.C. He shows you the warrant, signed by a federal judge. He asks for your cooperation, but it is not a request. It is a command. You are, in this moment, his subordinate. You look at him with a mixture of awe and resentment. He represents a level of professionalism and resources that you can only dream of. He has the backing of the United States government. He can call on the army for assistance if needed. His pursuit of a fugitive is not a desperate gamble. It is a systematic, relentless process. He might stay in your town for a few days, gathering information. He is polite but distant. He doesn't drink in your saloons. He doesn't get drawn into your local disputes. He is a man with a single, focused purpose. He is a professional in a world of amateurs. His presence makes you acutely aware of your own status. You are a local peacekeeper, dealing with local drunks. He is a symbol of a larger, more powerful order that is slowly, inevitably extending its reach into the wild corners of the frontier. When he leaves, riding out on the trail of his quarry, the town feels a little smaller, and your badge feels a little more like tin. Then there is another kind of lawman, one who is even more unsettling. He doesn't wear a badge. He works for a private company, like the Pinkerton National Detective Agency, or for a powerful cattlemen's association. He is a range detective, a hired gun with a veneer of legality. These men are sent to deal with problems that the official law is too slow or too weak to handle. They are sent to hunt down rustlers, to break up gangs of horse thieves, or to intimidate homesteaders who are encroaching on the cattle baron's territory. They are efficient, ruthless, and they operate outside the bounds of your authority. A range detective might ride into your county, track down a suspected rustler, and execute him on the spot. There is no arrest, no trial, no due process. There is only a body left hanging from a cottonwood tree, a grim warning to others. They call this prairie justice. You are powerless to stop them. They are employed by men far more powerful than your town council. The cattle baron who hired the detective might own half the land in your county and have the governor in his pocket. If you try to arrest the detective for murder, you will find yourself out of a job, or worse. These men are a law unto themselves. They are the enforcers of a corporate capitalist order that is imposing its will on the frontier. They are a sign that the era of the small-time rancher and the independent community is ending, replaced by the era of big money and hired guns. You might hate them. You might see them as nothing more than legalized assassins. But you also, in a strange way, fear them. They are a dark mirror of your own job. They are what happens when the law becomes a tool not of the people, but of power and profit. So you have the U.S. Marshal, a symbol of the federal power that is taming the West. You have the range detective, a symbol of the corporate power that is buying it. And then you have you, the local sheriff, a man caught in the middle, trying to keep the peace in a small town that is being buffeted by the great, impersonal forces of history. You are a relic, a man of a dying era, and the phantoms and professionals who pass through your town are the heralds of a new world that will have little use for a man with a tin star and a tired heart. You lock the door to your office at night. You lie down on your cot. You try to sleep, and in the quiet moments, you think of your wife. If you are one of the few lawmen who is married, you know that your job is a heavy burden not just on you, but on her. She is the unspoken, uncelebrated partner in your dangerous work. She is the woman who waits. She lives in a small house at the edge of town, a little removed from the chaos of Main Street. But the chaos finds her. Every time a gunshot echoes from the saloon, her heart stops for a moment. Every time you are late coming home, she imagines the worst. She lives in a constant state of low-grade fear, a fear she tries to hide from you and from the children. Her life is one of profound loneliness. The other respectable women in town are wary of her. Being married to the sheriff is not a position of honor, it is a mark of strangeness. You are the man who deals with the town's filth, with the violence and the vice, and that filth, in their eyes, clings to your family as well. Your wife is not invited to many quilting bees or church socials. She is the lawman's wife, an outsider in a town that she is supposed to be a part of. She is your nurse. When you come home bruised and bloodied from a fight, she is the one who cleans your wounds, who stitches your cuts, who sits by your side through the long, feverish nights. She has seen more of the ugly reality of your job than anyone. She has seen the fear in your eyes after a close call, the exhaustion in your soul after a long ride. She is your fortress. Her home is the one place where you can take off the tin star, where you can be a husband and a father, not a target. She creates a small island of peace and sanity in the middle of a world that is anything but. But the world intrudes. Your children are teased at school. Your pa is a killer, they might say, after you've been forced to shoot a man. Or they are threatened by the sons of men you have arrested. Your family becomes a vulnerability, a soft spot that your enemies can target. You have seen it happen. A rock thrown through your window in the middle of the night. A threatening note left on your doorstep. The constant fear that a man you've sent to jail, or his friends, will seek revenge not on you, but on your wife and children. This is the terrible calculus of your life. The job that allows you to provide for your family is the same job that puts them in constant danger. Many lawmen on the frontier chose not to marry, or they left their families behind back east. They knew that a solitary man was a safer man, but you have chosen a different path. And so you live with the guilt and the fear. You look at your wife's face, at the worry lines that are starting to form around her eyes, and you wonder if you have made a terrible mistake. You wonder if the meager pay and the fleeting sense of duty are worth the price she has to pay. She is the unsung hero of your story. She doesn't wear a badge, she doesn't carry a gun, but her courage is as great as yours. It is the quiet, steady courage of a woman who stands by her man, even when his job threatens to tear their world apart. It is the courage of a woman who waits, who prays, and who knows that every sunrise that finds you alive is a small, precious victory in a war that never ends. She is the anchor that keeps you from drifting away into the darkness, the one reason you keep fighting to bring a little bit of light into a very dark place. The tin star on your chest is not a lifetime appointment. It is a temporary loan, granted to you by the will of the people, or at least the will of the handful of powerful men who run your town. You are an elected official, and that means your job is subject to the whims of politics, a game that is often dirtier and more dangerous than any gunfight. Every 2 years you have to run for re-election, and that means you have to be more than just a lawman. You have to be a politician. Your campaign is not run on grand speeches or promises of reform. It is run in the back rooms of saloons, in the office of the general store, in quiet conversations with the cattle barons and the banker. You are not selling a vision for the future. You are selling yourself. You are trying to convince the powerful men of prosperity that you are the best man to protect their interests. This is a treacherous balancing act. You need the support of the respectable element of the town, the churchgoers, the merchants' wives, the temperance league. They want you to be tough on vice. They want you to close the brothels, to crack down on gambling, to enforce the Sunday laws that prohibit the saloons from opening. But you also need the support of the saloon owners, the gamblers, and the cowboys who fuel the town's economy. They want you to look the other way. They see your attempts to enforce morality as a threat to their livelihood and their freedom. The saloon owner is also the mayor, and his support is crucial. So you compromise. You make a show of raiding a card game now and then, but you never touch the high-stakes game in the back room of the mayor's saloon. You arrest the street-walking prostitutes, but you leave the high-class brothel above the hotel alone. You enforce the Sunday laws for an hour in the morning, and then you quietly disappear for the rest of the day. You are constantly making deals, cutting corners, and swallowing your pride. You are trying to be all things to all people, which means you are truly loyal to no one. Your opponent in the election is a young, ambitious man who is promising a new way. He is promising to be tougher, to clean up the town. He is secretly being funded by a rival cattle baron who wants to gain more influence. He goes around town shaking hands, buying drinks, and telling everyone that you are old, tired, and corrupt. The campaign gets dirty. Rumors are spread about you, that you are a coward, that you take bribes, that you are secretly in league with the outlaws. There is no truth to these rumors, but truth doesn't matter in politics. Perception is everything. You have to defend yourself. You have to go out and remind people of what you've done. You have to shake the same hands, buy the same drinks. You have to smile and pretend that you are not exhausted, that you are not disillusioned, that you still believe in the law you are supposed to represent. The election is held. The votes are cast. The ballots are counted, often by the very men whose political futures depend on the outcome. The results are announced in the town square. If you win, you have earned another 2 years of low pay, long hours, and constant danger. You have survived the political battle, but you have also accumulated more enemies, more resentments, more compromises that weigh on your soul. If you lose, you are out of a job. You have to unpin the tin star and hand it to your opponent. You are no longer the law. You are just another man, a man who has made powerful enemies and who now has no authority to protect himself. The men you arrested will be looking for you. The families of the men you killed will be looking for you. Your political opponents will make sure that you can't find other work in this town. Losing the election can be a death sentence. This is the hidden reality of being a frontier sheriff. You are not an independent hero standing above the fray. You are a public servant, caught in the messy, brutal, and often corrupt machinery of local politics. The greatest threat to your career is not an outlaw's bullet, but a voter's ballot. And the need to win that vote forces you into 1,000 small betrayals of the very justice you are sworn to uphold. The tin star is not a shield. It is a leash, held by the powerful men who can take it away at any moment. You've been the sheriff of prosperity for 5 years now. Or is it 6? The years have started to blur together, each one a cycle of dust, whiskey, and blood. You are not the same man who first pinned on this badge. That man was younger, maybe a little naive. He thought he could make a difference. You know better now. The job has hollowed you out. It's a slow, grinding process of erosion, like a river wearing down a stone. It's not one single event, not one great tragedy. It's the cumulative weight of 1,000 small ones. It's the endless succession of drunks you've had to haul to jail. It's the domestic disputes you've had to mediate, seeing the same cycle of violence play out in the same families week after week. It's the bodies you've had to cut down from trees, the blood you've had to wash off the boardwalks. It's the frightened eyes of children who look at you like you're a monster. You've become jaded, cynical. You used to believe in the law, in the idea of justice. Now you see the law for what it is. A clumsy, often ineffective tool used by the powerful to maintain control. You've seen too many guilty men walk free because they had money and connections. You've seen too many innocent men suffer because they didn't. The violence has taken its toll. You have been shot at, stabbed, and beaten. You have had to kill men. You tell yourself it was in the line of duty, that you had no choice. But their faces haunt you in the quiet hours of the night. You see them when you close your eyes. The surprise, the pain, the final empty stare. Each one has taken a small piece of your soul. You drink more now. The whiskey used to be a way to unwind after a hard day. Now, it's a necessity. It's the only thing that dulls the constant, low-level hum of anxiety. It's the only thing that helps you sleep. You tell yourself you have it under control, but you know you are lying. You've become detached, emotionally numb. You have to. It's a survival mechanism. If you allowed yourself to feel the full weight of the misery and injustice you witness every day, it would crush you. So you build a wall around your heart. You go through the motions of your job with a cold, professional efficiency. You investigate a murder with the same detached interest as you would investigate a stolen chicken. Your wife tells you that you've changed. She says you are distant, that you never smile anymore. She says you have a hardness in your eyes that scares her. You know she's right, but you don't know how to fix it. You don't know how to be the man you were before. This is the burnout. It's a sickness of the soul, a slow poisoning of the spirit. It's what happens when you spend too long staring into the abyss. The abyss stares back, and its reflection is your own tired, empty face. You think about quitting, just taking off the badge, packing up your family and riding away, going somewhere quiet, somewhere where you don't have to carry the weight of a whole town's sins on your shoulders. But where would you go? This job is all you know. It has marked you. You are the lawman. It's not just what you do, it's who you are. And you are afraid that if you take off the badge, there will be nothing left underneath. So you keep going. You get up every morning. You drink your bitter coffee. You pin on the tin star. You walk out into the dusty street. You are a man running on fumes, a ghost haunting the ruins of his own life. You are a soul full of dust, waiting for the final gust of wind to blow you away. A lawman's career in the Wild West doesn't end with a retirement party and a gold watch. It ends. Suddenly, quietly or violently. There are only a few ways out, and none of them are gentle. Perhaps the end comes for you in a flash of gunfire. You walk into the saloon to break up a fight. It's a scene you've played out 100 times, but this time something is different. The man you are trying to arrest is younger, faster, and more desperate than you are. He pulls his gun. You pull yours. But you are a fraction of a second too slow. The years of exhaustion, the slight tremor in your hand from the whiskey, the weariness in your soul, they all add up to that fatal, final hesitation. The bullet hits you in the chest. You fall backward, the roar of the gun echoing in your ears, the faces of the saloon patrons blurring into a final, meaningless collage. Your last thought is of your wife. You have become Miller. Your story ends in a pine box, your grave marked by a cheap wooden headstone that will rot away in a few years. Or perhaps the end is quieter, more humiliating. It's election time again. The town has grown. The railroad has brought in new people, new money. They want a different kind of lawman. They don't want a rough, tired frontier sheriff. They want a modern, respectable police chief who will wear a uniform and keep the town quiet and safe for investment. Your opponent is a young man from back east with a law degree and powerful friends. He promises progress, order, and an end to the old ways. You are the old ways. You lose the election in a landslide. You have to unpin your badge and hand it to a man who has never been in a real fight in his life. You are left with nothing. No job, no pension, no respect. You are a relic. A man out of time. You might drift to another town, looking for another thankless job. Or you might just fade into obscurity. A bitter old man sitting on the porch of a small, failing farm, telling stories of your glory days to anyone who will listen, which is no one. Or maybe you make the choice yourself. One morning you wake up and you just can't do it anymore. The weight is too heavy. The burnout has consumed you. You look at your badge, at the gun belt hanging on the wall. They seem like artifacts from another man's life. You write a short letter of resignation to the town council. You pack your meager belongings. You saddle your horse. You ride out of town without saying goodbye to anyone. You don't look back. You ride west or east, it doesn't matter. You are just riding away. You are searching for a place where no one knows your name, where no one knows you were once the law. You are trying to outrun your own ghost. This is the end of the line. There is no peaceful retirement. There is no honor. The job uses you up and then discards you. It takes your youth, your health, your soul, and gives you nothing in return but a handful of bloody stories and a deep, abiding weariness. You were the man who tried to hold the line between civilization and chaos, but the line was always imaginary, and the chaos was always stronger. In the end, it consumes everyone, including you. One day, another man gets off the train. He is not a US Marshal or a Pinkerton detective. He is a writer from New York, a man with soft hands and an insatiable appetite for stories. He is a dime novelist, a purveyor of the cheap, sensational Western adventures that are becoming wildly popular back east. He has come to the frontier to find authentic material for his next book. He wants to interview you. He has heard stories about you, the tough, fearless sheriff of prosperity. He wants to know about your gunfights, your showdowns with outlaws, your heroic defense of the town. You agree to talk to him, mostly out of a weary sense of curiosity. He buys you a drink at the saloon. He takes out a small notebook and a pencil. He looks at you with wide, eager eyes. "Tell me," he says, "about the gunfight at the OK Corral." You tell him you've never been to the OK Corral, which is in Arizona, a world away. You tell him that real gunfights are nothing like the stories. They are clumsy, terrifying, and over in a matter of seconds. They are not noble duels. They are sordid, ugly affairs. He looks disappointed. He changes the subject. "Tell me about the outlaws you've faced, the cunning masterminds, the gentleman bandits." You tell him that the only outlaws you've ever faced were desperate, stupid men, often drunk, who robbed a stagecoach for a few $100s and were caught because they left a trail a child could follow. You tell him they were not gentlemen. They were pathetic, dangerous losers. He scribbles in his notebook, but you can see he's not writing down what you're saying. He is filtering it, transforming it. So, he says, a lone sheriff, facing down a ruthless gang of desperados, his hand hovering over his trusty Colt, the fate of the town resting on his courage. You look at him. You look at his clean suit, at his soft hands, at the naive excitement in his face, and you realize that he is not interested in the truth. The truth is too messy, too sad, too unheroic. The truth doesn't sell books. He wants a myth. He wants a story of clear-cut good versus evil, of heroic courage and dastardly villainy. He wants to turn your miserable, thankless, terrifying job into a grand adventure. You could tell him the truth. You could tell him about the fee system, the lynch mobs, the politics. You could tell him about the burnout, the fear, the loneliness. You could tell him about the woman who waits at home, about the ghosts that haunt your sleep. But you don't. You are too tired. And what would be the point? He wouldn't understand. And his readers don't want to understand. They want to be entertained. So you give him a story. You tell him about a time you faced down 3 cowboys in the saloon. You leave out the part where you were terrified and your hands were shaking. You leave out the part where it was just a stupid, drunken argument over a spilled beer. You make it sound like a showdown. His eyes light up. He scribbles furiously in his notebook. Magnificent, he says. A true hero of the West. He buys you another drink. He thanks you for your time. He gets back on the train and returns to his comfortable life in New York. A few months later, someone sends you a copy of the dime novel he has written. It's called The Sheriff of Prosperity, a tale of courage on the Kansas plains. There is a crude drawing on the cover of a handsome, steely-eyed man with 2 guns, facing down a horde of snarling villains. You don't recognize the man. You don't recognize the story. You read a few pages. It's full of flowery language, impossible feats of marksmanship, and heroic speeches you never made. It turns the sordid, grubby reality of your life into a clean, simple, thrilling legend. You put the book down. You don't know whether to laugh or cry. You are now a character in a story that has nothing to do with you. The myth makers have arrived. They are taking your pain, your fear, your exhaustion, and they are polishing it into a shining lie. And you know, with a deep, weary certainty, that the lie is what people will remember. The truth will be buried, forgotten, like an unmarked grave on a lonely hill. The real you is already starting to disappear. So, you've walked a mile in the dusty, worn-out boots of a frontier sheriff. You've faced the drunks, the mobs, the politicians, and the ghosts. You've felt the weight of the tin star, the chill of the jail cell, and the profound loneliness of the long ride. Still think it's a job for heroes? The myth of the Wild West lawman is one of the most powerful and enduring in American culture. He is the lone rider, the quiet man of integrity, the bringer of justice to a lawless land. He is a symbol of American individualism, of the triumph of order over chaos. But the reality, as we've seen, was a far messier, more compromised, and more human story. The real frontier sheriff was not a gunslinging superhero. He was an underpaid, overworked public servant, caught in an impossible position. He was a man trying to enforce a fragile set of rules in a world that didn't respect them, for a community that both needed and resented him. His story is not one of glorious victories, but of small, temporary successes and a long, grinding war of attrition against human nature. His greatest enemy was not the outlaw, but the everyday foolishness, greed, and violence of the people he was sworn to protect. Tonight, when you turn off the lights and settle into the safety and comfort of the modern world, think of him. Think of the man standing in a dusty street, facing a choice with no good options. Think of the quiet courage it took not to win a gunfight, but to simply get up the next morning and do it all again. The gunslinging heroes of the movies are entertaining fictions, but the real frontier sheriff, in all his flawed, tired, and compromised humanity, offers a more profound and unsettling story. It's a story about the true cost of order, about the moral weight of authority, and about the quiet, uncelebrated labor of those who stand on the thin line between a community and the darkness it creates. The legends are written in ink and celluloid, but the truth is written in the dust, in the blood, and in the deep, weary lines on a forgotten man's face. He is the shadow on the wall of the American psyche, a reminder that the peace we take for granted was bought at a price we have long since forgotten.